But then we get into our power rankings. And I think, when we talk about the Elite Eight, of course, this is where legends are made. And without further ado, let's get into it. As at number 8 here, we both have a team that just knocked off the reigning NFC champions, a team that was one penalty call away in the Super Bowl last year from winning it all, the Philadelphia Eagles. And we talked about Tampa Bay there. They look good, and they just feel different with with Baker Mayfield at the helm. And your thoughts here about them as they both move up 5 spots in our rankings.
I think they're by far the worst team in the playoffs up to this point. And if I'm still ranking, the playoffs as a whole, I still think they're the second, the second to worst team,
Yeah.
To be in the playoffs. But they're playing up to this level, so I have them at 8. And it's not really much to say. I just think every team that's over them is that much better.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you can be really good at this point. I don't want to discredit Tampa Bay,
Yeah,
but at the same time, there's other teams here that, and I don't know about you, Amir, but I rank these teams as if this, I think these are the in order of the teams I think that will win the Super Bowl, right?
yeah.
But at number 7, we both have the Green Bay Packers. As much as I love Jordan Love, no pun intended, I couldn't put him any higher until no. I'll say this: if they beat San Fran this weekend. If they beat San Fran, they're a top 3 team to me going forward, just because of that momentum and confidence boost going forward, especially if he could do something that Aaron Rodgers hasn't done in his career, which is beat
Yeah.
San Francisco in the playoffs. So to me, though, Jordan Love and this team is playing fantastic. Jaden Reed is slowly turning into one of those underrated superstar level wide receivers. But your thoughts here about the green and gold?
Yeah, this Packers team, I say them and the next spot are kind of interchangeable. Um, man, this team is surprising. The receiving core is slightly above average. It's not even an elite receiving core, and they're still just dotting teams up. Like seeing last week, seeing what they're capable of. It's kind of like I'm in kind of a worse situation because we know for a fact Dallas is used to being frauds, but this Green Bay team looked way too good to overlook. I think if they beat San Fran, man,
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, Jordan Love, it's going to be like a man in a franchise, the way that he turned this
yeah,
franchise around and won them a Super Bowl. I think saying top 3 is not really doing them any justice because there's only 4 teams that advance. So I'm going to say this: if Green Bay wins this weekend, they're a top 2 team in my books going into conference title weekend. But then we talk about number 6, the team that just beat the Cleveland Browns, and they have a chance to beat another AFC North rival, or of course another AFC North team in the Baltimore Ravens. CJ Stroud and the crew, high-powered passing offense. They're going to be a fun team on both sides of the ball. And of course, Lamar doesn't have the biggest track record in the playoffs. But your thoughts here about the Texans pulling off a big win? Some would say an upset in the first round. Why are they not a top 5 team for you?
yeah. This Texas team, just like I saw the top 5 based off of what we've seen from those 5 teams. Them being more consistent throughout the season and them having bigger difference makers. But I'm putting them over top of Green Bay just for the simple fact that man, their defense last week looked
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
And they're definitely far better than Green Bay's. I understand Green Bay in the second half was playing prevent, playing a little passive, but if Dallas's defense could somewhat step it up in that second half, I believe Dallas is somewhat coming back into that game. Houston against Cleveland, it was all gas, no breaks. They started off hot and they dominated from start to finish. And I think this Houston team matches up better against Baltimore and against San Fran, against these top teams, more than Green Bay and Tampa Bay does.
When it comes to the playoffs, I love that about teams when it's all gas, no breaks. Regular season, I
Yeah,
get it. Take your foot off the pedal. You don't have anything to prove. If you won the game, just get your win and go on to next week. But when it comes to the playoffs, man, these are the playoffs. This is the best against the best. And if I can blow your team out by 30, I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave my guys on the field, and we're going to do that. We're going to leave a statement. But like you mentioned there, Green Bay's defense did allow 500 yards in that prevent style defense. But then we get into the top 5. Amir, it has been the same top 2 for about 5 weeks now. Who is the number 1 and number 2 team here in the NFL?
Baltimore and San Fran.
Baltimore and San Fran. That has been our top 5, our top 1 and 2 for the last couple of weeks. There's no reason to change them. Of course,
Yeah.
I gave you the option, of course, when you're filling out your slides. But you kept your slides here, and until it changes, we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep spoiling like 1 and 2. I guess it's not really a spoiler. But at number 5, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. You have them jumping up 4 spots, me 3. from 8 to number 5. But Kansas City, to me, it really comes down to it. This team is a different team when it comes to playoff time, just like multiple teams in the NBA, just like in the teams in other sports. These teams just have, they can flip that switch and they can get into that mode. And again, they have the best player on the planet in Patrick Mahomes, a future first ballot Hall of Famer. And I mean, if he can go out this year with this team and win another Super Bowl back to back, something a team hasn't done since the early 2000s, we're going to have to start talking about this man seriously as if he is the GOAT carrying this team to a Super Bowl victory. But as of right now, I think they're the 5th best team. They have a chance this weekend. I picked them this weekend, but I think as a football team, their opponent this weekend just a little bit better. But your thoughts here about the Kansas City Chiefs?
Man, if Mahomes was to pull this run off, then man, like we're gonna have a serious convo with him and Brady already. And, I'm not over exaggerating, but the fact that this Kansas City team is worse than any championship Patriots team ever, and it's not even close. I mean, the defense as well, but offensively, they are lacking. And I have them at 5. Just based off of the fact, they're lacking so much talent, offensively. That's been the biggest struggle all year long. Despite Travis Kelce having 80 yards receiving last week, he still dropped like 4 passes.
Yeah.
Crucial drops, and that's been the biggest problem. And, going into the rest of the playoffs, their pass protection on the outside, at their tackles, has been another major issue. I think that's going to catch up to them this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And at number 4, the Detroit Lions, man. The Detroit Lions, to me, of course, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1. Of course, some injuries were in play there, but I think they beat they had the best overall matchup last week against the LA Rams. And it was the only game last weekend that wasn't decided by 14 plus points. So it came down to the wire. Tough matchup throughout the entire way. Matt Stafford was amazing. Luka Nakuya, of course, also had an amazing day. But I think the Lions, to me, very impressive win last week. And we've been looking for that very impressive win from start to finish. They have that. And I think they're a top 4 team heading into this weekend. And of course, we both have them pulling out the win. But your thoughts here on the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, the Lions are at 4. I think they're the 4th best team up to this point. Their team is absolutely loaded, and the fact that they're going to be playing at home again this week. In my mind, they're pretty much guaranteed to the NFC Championship. But if Green Bay was to upset San Fran, this week, the Lions are going to have a legitimate shot at winning their first Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think if Green Bay wins next week or this week, I'm probably going to take them over Detroit, as crazy as that sounds, just because I like Jordan Love that much. But guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, David Montgomery, 2 of my favorite players in the league. Again, random players, but I just really like these players. So I really hope, for the sake of those 2 guys, I hope that Detroit, and for their fans, of course, their city, they can pull it off and, of course, bring home their first Super Bowl. But then at number 3, we both have the Buffalo Bills. They've remained here for the last 2 or 3 weeks. This is a team that, again, the new offensive coordinator, they're, I guess, new look, even though they have the same roster. It was just that midseason change. Something so small on paper made such a big difference. And again, Josh Allen has preserved his greatness, his arm, and to a point now where he's fresh going into an Elite 8 round, of course, into the divisional round. And I just think that, we saw last week, it doesn't need to be with his arm to get the job done. And he had one of the greatest playoff performances of all time. But your thoughts here about the Buffalo Bills before we close off here?
You just mentioned that it doesn't have to be with his arm. That's why, I'm not a fan of the narrative of him throwing too many interceptions. At the end of the day, he still has 40-plus total touchdowns and still has the same amount of turnovers as guys like Hurts, guys like Mahomes, those other top, quarterbacks. And the fact that he can dominate, truly dominate on the ground, and he's not just, tush-push like Hurts, all these other guys. Like the fact that he can actually, pose a threat, this Buffalo offense is on a whole other level. And, them making that change was the greatest thing they ever could have done, because now, their chances to win it all are, through the roof.